Well, good morning. It is Friday the 26th of February 2021. It's about 10 to 10 in the morning. It is a Friday. Currently it's about 28 degrees. And I'm at West End in Brisbane. West End is one of Brisbane's earliest suburbs. And it's also one of Brisbane's suburbs that's seen the greatest change. And one of Brisbane's earliest suburbs, West End, is also one of the locales that's seen a lot of multiculturalism as well. I'm actually in Hargrave Road, West End, but I'm going to be moving to Boundary Street and some other areas of interest as well. I like to do my videos without any editing straight through, but on this one I'm going to have to stop, make an edit when I get to another location in West End and continue on, and you'll see those edits as you look at this video. But the name West End is believed to have been taken from the area of London by the same name because, according to Brian Randall, who used to work at the State Library of Queensland, it was seen in earlier times, West End, as a fashionable place for the houses of the wealthy. The Aboriginal name for this area is Kurilpa, which means place of water rats. And there's still local evidence of this name, including the post office on the corner of Dornoch Terrace and Hargrave Road, which is still called Kurilpa. I'm looking at the Rialto Theatre, that aqua-looking building with the pink writing, the Rialto, and that's a well-known landmark right here in West End. The theatre was originally built in 1924, supposedly by a retired mariner captain. It was mainly intended as a cinema, but was also utilised as a venue for live performance. And many people remember the Rialto as a venue for recording major radio programs way back. For example, Bob Dyer on 4BK, for those who remember those old radio days, Jack Davey for 4BH, and Australia's Amateur Hour, Terry Deer, and also the Quiz Kids as well, with John Deese, performed in front of audiences right there. The Rialto Theatre was eventually unroofed by a violent storm in 1995 and is now in use, as you can see there, as a restaurant, and there's some complexes and various food stalls in there as well. So there's the restaurant in there now, the Train Restaurant. You can see the front really looks like a theatre, doesn't it? So the Rialto would bring back a lot of memories, and it's one of the old landmarks here in West End, in Hargrave Road. Some of the houses down through here, some of the original cottage houses. That's been turned into a dental business. some of the businesses along here, along Montague Road. Some of these original buildings here look fairly old. Must have been built back in 1920 surely, or a little bit earlier, some of those buildings. Well, there's that section of Hardgrave Road and the old, what used to be the Rialto Theatre, the Rialto. And we're just about to head to another area of West End right now. Well, we're now in Boundary Street in West End. Boundary Street has a load of different businesses and multicultural shops as well. Boundary Street actually got its name because it formed a boundary where the local Aborigines were not allowed to come into the city area after 4 p.m. They were allowed through during the day into the city, but Boundary Street formed the barrier where they were not allowed to cross after 4 p.m. at night into the city. I think the local Aborigine people were the Jagera or Jagara back in the 1800s. Just an amazing array of different shops and a great culture here. West End has long been seen as a multicultural melting pot, and this may have begun with the large inflow of Greek migrants who favoured this area, especially after World War II, when West End became known as Little Athens. And by 1980, it was estimated that 75% of Brisbane, or the Brisbane Greek population, lived here in the West End. Let's walk a bit further up here. Shame about the graffiti on that building. as we walk up Boundary Street, West End. So many little eating places, restaurants, coffee shops, various businesses through here. Some original homes over there. All right, we'll just backtrack a little bit. And then we'll turn right. This is the intersection of Boundary and Vulture right now. Boundary Street further down, and just walking up Vulture Street just a little bit. It's like they're restoring that old house there. There's the old West End Uniting Church. For sure they'd have the Greek Orthodox Church for such a high Greek population in West End. West End actually started off as farming land, and in the 1880s there were Chinese market gardens along Montague Road between Boundary and Jane Streets. Used to be a lot of timber around here. It was heavily timbered, but this timber didn't last too long. It was exhausted by the 1880s, and the local timber mills were Pettigrew's at North Quay and also Parbury's in South Brisbane. All right, I'll catch you with the next section of this video in just a second. Well, I'm still in Boundary Street and I came across some of this history which you may be interested in West End. I think it's fantastic. They've got this history here for everyone rather, to have a look at. West End has grown into a tolerant, inclusive and diverse community. Well, that's good news. In the late 1800s, immigrants from Italy, Malta, Greece, Germany, Poland, China, Russia and Ottoman Syria, which at the time included Lebanon, began to arrive in Australia to escape poverty and to seek a better future. As we mentioned before, primarily a Greek population in West End, but the concerns of workers, unions and the community that immigrants were taking jobs from existing workforce led to the Immigration Restriction Act 1901, known unfortunately as the White Australia policy, which sought to exclude non-Europeans, including Lebanese. In 1966, the policy was effectively dismantled. That's good, but it took until 1973 for racial discrimination clauses to be finally removed. Many Lebanese, often called Syrians, were discriminated against in employment. Some became hawkers and shopkeepers in cities and rural towns, while others opened businesses and small factories in South Brisbane. In 1897, Stanley Street was negatively described as Syrian Town. How racist. They established the Lebanese Melkite Church in South Brisbane and built the Abraham's Corner and Joseph buildings on the Boundary Street entrance to West End at Melbourne Street. In 1925, Michael Asma opened a tailor shop in Melbourne Street, with Asma Frocks established in Hardgrave Road. And by 1935, the clothing factory, finally in Drake Street, West End. This business existed locally for over 50 years.
Is there any Aboriginal heritage in this, mate?
There is with Boundary Street.
What about in here? But like, what's this stating?
Is that for YouTube?
It is, and I've already mentioned that Boundary Street was a restrictive street to restrict the Jagara or Jagara people from coming into the city after, or rather before, they were allowed to come in before 4 o'clock.
But why was that? Why was the black people segregated?
And, well, this is why it's called Boundary Street. This was the boundary. They were allowed to go into the city during the day, but after 4 o'clock they weren't allowed to go into the city.
Right?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, because this is their land, mate, you know what I mean?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
They're First Nations people, and they were given a boundary. I hate that history, mate.
Yeah, and also this isn't the only Boundary Street. There's another Boundary Street up at Spring Hill.
I hate that history.
And that Boundary Street.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Right to right now,
Yeah.
I hate that history.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
No, you're on YouTube. You
Yeah.
got that YouTube thing, what you want.
You do YouTube channels?
Yeah, Explorerman.
I hope, Explorerman, I hope you don't edit this out.
Oh no, it's all in here. Yeah.
Because they're going to like this. Have a good day, mate.
Yeah, you too.
You too.
All right, yeah. Can I get you on camera?
Yeah.
Yep. Hello?
Black Lives Matter.
Right. Okay. They're nice people, aren't they? All right, so where were we? Post-World War II in 1945, Australia adopted a populate or perish policy to encourage immigration. Between 1953-56, Southern European immigrants outnumbered those who spoke English, with people from Greece and Italy in particular migrating to West End. Family and social groups became vital support structures in an environment where many experienced racism in the community and artwork. From 1975, Vietnamese and other Indo-Chinese refugees arrived after the fall of Saigon, and the term boat people unfortunately, became part of our language. An estimated 60,000 refugees, including 2,059, I would say, immigrants, refugees, I don't like using the term boat people, came to Australia in the first 7 years after Vietnam War. Many settled in West End, where they established a medical practice, pharmacy, restaurants and Asian food stores. Hard workers. More recently, Dara and Nala became the centre of this community, but Vietnamese businesses remained in West End. And in the early 1980s, the local St Francis of Assisi Catholic parish became actively involved in the resettlement of refugees. In 1985, Holy Spirit missionary sister Lurleen English established mutual assistance for Indo-Chinese in a community house with local volunteers. MAI sponsored and helped hundreds of Indo-Chinese refugees and families settle in Brisbane. Thank you, my parents. You risked the whole family for a better life. Here's the story on this. In 1979, 126 members of my family fled South Vietnam by a boat made in secret by my uncles. 4 days later, we arrived at the refugee camp on tiny Bidong Island, Malaysia, which eventually housed 40,000 refugees. My family was accepted as Australian refugees 6 months later. We stayed at the Waikol Migrant Centre for 3 months until my father found a job. As both my parents worked, my childhood was spent caring for my siblings, studying, and at night the whole family worked making earrings. There was no time for play. After just 5 years, my parents bought a house in O'Connell Street and Huong's restaurant in Vulture Street. So West End has long been a diverse community, multicultural melting pot. We mentioned that. In 1960, 40% of West End state school students were from non-English speaking backgrounds. 35% from Greece, with the remainder from Russia, Lebanon, China and Italy. And in 2017, 40% were still from non-English speaking backgrounds, but represented 82 cultural backgrounds and 57 different languages. The cycle of change continues. 2016 census recorded Mandarin as the most common non-English language spoken at home in the 4101 postcode. Well, that's that part of the video. I'll see you on the next part. And this is the last section of our West End video walk. Brisbane River right there, and across the Brisbane River is Coronation Drive. We're in West End. And I just want to show you this tower here. This is the only one of its kind left in Australia today. This cast iron tower was made in England and shipped out in sections to the 1880s established South Brisbane Gas and Lighting Company in 1912 in an effort to upgrade their production facilities. This tower's role, because they call this a gas stripping tower, this tower's role was to strip raw coal gas of its impurities, ammonia and coal tar, and not to be wasted, these impurities were then drained and sold as ammonia liqueur. By 1949, technology had improved further and the tower was decommissioned, and by 1970, the company itself had closed due to natural gas being widely available. The majority of the gas company buildings were demolished, but a few heritage-listed relics still stand along Montague Road. And while this tower was restored separately and moved 150 metres away from its original position to where it now stands. So there it is. Yeah. And speaking of Montague Road, there used to be a lot of Chinese farmers markets along Montague Road as well. So this is looking across the Brisbane River, and on the other side is Coronation Drive, and you can see that building just over there is the Wesley Hospital. And on the other side, as you go further up, you pass the Regatta Hotel. We'll do a video walk past there one day, and you end up in an area called Toowong. That's on the other side of that river. All right, thank you for joining me on this video walk. I really appreciate it. I know we had to cut it up into a few sections because I had to travel to do this in different areas. Please subscribe. If you like this video, please subscribe. Really appreciate it. You can write any comments you want below, and I will get back to you. I get back to everybody. And again, I thank you for watching. Have a fantastic time, no matter what time of day it is that you're watching this. Bye for now.